Level 1. The Dreamer. You're 12 years old, and every night the last thing you see before falling asleep is a bright red Ferrari F40 taped to the ceiling above your bed. 4 pieces of tape, one at each corner. It's been there for 3 years, and somehow it still feels magical. You don't know everything about the F40. Not yet. But you know enough. You know it has twin turbochargers. You know it was the last car personally approved by Enzo Ferrari before he died. You know it has no radio, no air conditioning, no carpet, because Ferrari stripped away anything that didn't make it faster. Those facts live in your head the same way the lyrics of your favorite song do, effortlessly, permanently. You don't subscribe to car magazines. You collect them. Every issue is carefully stacked in a wooden crate beneath your desk. Road and track, car and driver, auto car. You read every article, every comparison test, every technical breakdown. Not because someone tells you to, because cars feel important in a way you can't fully explain yet. They feel like freedom, like engineering given shape and purpose, like the best answer humanity has ever come up with to the question, what happens when people push themselves to create something extraordinary? At school, the margins of your notebooks slowly fill with car sketches, mostly side profiles. The proportions are terrible at first, but you keep drawing, and they slowly improve. One teacher notices and tells your parents you should be drawing something more useful. Your parents mostly smile and let you continue. Your father once owned an old Alfa Romeo for 3 years before you were born. Every now and then he talks about it, and something changes in his expression. A distant look, a small smile. You understand exactly what it means, even if neither of you says it out loud. At 14, you attend your first car show. A local concours held in a park on a quiet Sunday morning. Classic cars lined across the grass. Owners standing beside them, happy to talk to anyone who genuinely cares. You spend 4 straight hours asking questions and listening carefully to every answer. One owner, standing next to a beautifully restored 1963 Jaguar E-Type, talks with you for 45 minutes. He explains the development of the independent rear suspension. He tells stories about William Lyons and Malcolm Sayer. He explains why some people believe the E-Type shape has never truly been surpassed. You listen to every word. When you get home, you sit down immediately and write everything you can remember into a notebook before a single detail fades away. You have no money. You have no car. What you do have is curiosity, attention, and the rare patience of someone who already knows they're waiting for a life that hasn't started yet but will. Level 2. The first car owner. 18 years old, your first car is not the car of your dreams. It's a 1994 Volkswagen Golf with faded paint and a driver's seat that sags on the left side. You bought it for €900 from an ad online. It has rust at the sills and then exhaust note that the previous owner described as sporting and that you would describe as broken. You love it anyway. You love it because it's yours. Because you can look at it in the morning and it's your problem and your project and your responsibility. You service it yourself. You learn what you need to learn. You change the oil and realize you should have changed it 3 times before this. You replace brake pads and understand for the first time how a braking system actually functions by having your hands inside one. The Golf teaches you the first lesson every serious collector eventually internalizes. The best cars to own are the ones you can fix. The mystique of a vehicle diminishes the moment it becomes a hostage to a specialist you can reach by appointment only. You want to understand your cars completely. The Golf is where that starts. 2 years with the Golf and you've learned more about internal combustion engines, chassis dynamics, and fluid mechanics than any course could have taught you. You've also saved money. Not a lot, but enough for the next step. Level 3. The Enthusiast. You're 23, and the car is a 1994 Alfa Romeo GTV Series 1. Not bought from a showroom. Not found on a website. Bought for €4,000 from a man in northern Italy who was selling it because his wife had decided that 3 cars was one too many. The Alfa has covered 160,000 kilometers, and it has the paperwork to prove every single one. Service records packed inside a worn brown accordion folder. Garage receipts stretching all the way back to the original dealer. Every stamp, every invoice, every repair tells a story. This is the first car you own that already has a life behind it, and you can feel that life every time you drive. The seat has worn into a shape molded by years of use. The gearshift moves with a smoothness earned through decades of careful hands selecting those same ratios. Every detail reminds you that someone loved this machine long before it belonged to you. You're not just owning a car anymore. You're becoming its caretaker. The Alfa teaches you something no textbook can. It teaches you that quality and reliability are not always best friends, that the most beautiful machines are often the most demanding. That passion sometimes comes with conditions attached. And if you want the reward, you have to accept the terms. You do. For 3 years, you learn those terms. You accept them. You fight with the car occasionally. You understand it. And eventually, you love it for exactly what it is, not for what it could have been. Then you find your people. Alfa Romeo clubs, model-specific gatherings, weekend meets filled with owners who've been living this passion for 30 years or more. You listen. You learn. You absorb decades of experience like dry ground soaking up rain. And that's when another lesson reveals itself. Car collecting was never meant to be a solo journey. The real knowledge doesn't live in books or forums. It lives in the community. And if you want access to it, you have to become part of it. Level 4, the serious buyer. 28 years old. Your income has finally reached a point where the dream garage stops feeling like a fantasy and starts feeling possible. Not unlimited possibilities, real possibilities. The kind earned through years of work. Then comes the big purchase. A 1972 Porsche 911T, air-cooled, long wheelbase, original engine, matching numbers verified by the factory certificate. Price, 22,000 euros. For the first time, you're spending serious money on a car. Money that represents years of discipline, sacrifice, and deliberate choices. And you've chosen to turn it into this machine. The 911T completely changes your understanding of collecting. This isn't just transportation with personality. This is automotive history with a soul. The air-cooled flat-six doesn't sound like any other engine. The steering feels alive in your hands. Every input gets an immediate response because there's almost nothing between you and the road except metal, rubber, and physics. One autumn afternoon, on a winding mountain road, it finally clicks. You understand why enthusiasts say certain cars are alive. By now, you don't buy cars with emotions alone. You buy with knowledge. You know the factory option codes listed on the certificate. You understand Porsche dating certificates and exactly what they confirm. You know which VIN ranges belong to which production specifications. You can spot a true matching numbers car from one that's been altered. And you know that mistake can cost tens of thousands of euros. You're not making that mistake. You also discover that the best collectors aren't the fastest buyers, they're the most patient. Before finding the 911T, you walked away from 3 different cars. 2 had problems that would have become expensive lessons. 1 was simply overpriced. Learning to say no when every part of you wants to say yes has become a skill. And it's a skill that's making you better. Level 5, the knowledgeable collector. 32 years old. You have 4 cars. The Alfa is gone, sold to another enthusiast who sends you updates about it. The Golf is gone, given to a friend's son who needed transportation and received something more. The 911T remains in 3 others, each bought deliberately, each chosen for specific reasons that connect to an increasingly clear personal collecting philosophy. You buy things with stories, not just provenance, stories. The small numbers matching Fiat 131 Abarth that competed in period rallies and has documentation from the events. The launch of Fulvia Coupe that belonged to a racing journalist who drove it on assignment through 3 countries in 1971 and filed the stories from it. These cars are not simply mechanical objects. They're evidence of lives and choices in times that no longer exist anywhere except in the metal and the documents. Your budget for a single acquisition has expanded significantly. You spend time at auction previews now. You walk through the inspection tents at RM Sotheby's and Bonhams and Gooding & Company, and you look at the cars being offered with eyes trained by 10 years of study and ownership. You're not there to buy everything. You're there to understand the market and identify the cars that are priced correctly against their actual significance. You've also become someone others consult. Friends ask you to look at a car before they buy it. You go. You look at it properly. You check the things they don't know to check. You give them your honest assessment. You save some of them from mistakes. You're not a professional, but you're not an amateur anymore either. Level 6, the specialist. 37 years old, you've chosen a focus. Not because the broader world of collecting stopped being interesting, because depth is more satisfying than breadth, and you understand this about yourself now. The focus is Italian coach-built cars from the 1950s and 1960s. Zagato, Pininfarina, Bertone, bodies built on platforms from Ferrari, Alfa Romeo, Maserati, by designers who were inventing the visual language of the automobile in real time. These cars are rare in a different way from other rare cars. They're rare because they were made in small numbers, often one at a time, by craftsmen who no longer exist, and using techniques that no longer exist either. When you own one, you own something genuinely irreplaceable, not just practically irreplaceable, categorically. People who made them are gone. The conditions under which they were made are gone. There will never be another one. You know the designers, not personally, through their work and through the literature. You can identify as a gurney nutting without seeing a badge. You know the specific design language of individual carrozzeria houses, the characteristic greenhouse treatments and tail profiles, and the way doors are hung on different builders' interpretations of the same underlying platform. This knowledge takes years to acquire. You acquired it through a combination of study and ownership and conversation with a handful of serious specialists who operate in this space. The community at this level is small, 40 or 50 people worldwide who share your specific focus with your level of knowledge. You know most of them. You meet them at specialist events in Italy, in Germany, and at Pebble Beach during Concours Week. Level 7, the serious collector. 42 years old, your collection has 15 cars stored across 2 climate-controlled facilities. Each car is documented, insured, serviced, and driven at least once per year, because a car that isn't driven is a car that's dying slowly. You don't believe in static collections. The cars were built to move. You've been to Pebble Beach as a judge. You've judged at Villa d'Este. You've written catalog notes for Bonhams. The community has recognized you as someone whose opinion carries weight, and you treat that recognition as a responsibility rather than a credential. You've also made mistakes, bought things that turned out to be incorrectly represented, paid too much twice, missed cars you should have acquired when you had the chance. These mistakes cost money. They also cost more than money, because in a small community, your judgment is part of your reputation, and your reputation is part of your access. You absorb the lessons and you don't make the same mistakes twice. The cars themselves have become a portfolio, not an investment portfolio in the financial sense. You don't buy cars to sell them, but they have value that's real in the changes over time and ways you understand. You know which categories are being revalued by a new generation of collectors. You know which cars were important when they were built and haven't been recognized yet by the broader market. You acquired some of those, not strategically in the cynical sense, because they're genuinely important and you want to own important things. Level 8, the significant collector. 48 years old. A car you discovered and campaigned for has won best in class at Pebble Beach. Not as the owner of record. The car belongs to a friend you connected with the car 3 years ago, but the research was yours. The case for the car's significance was yours. The restoration direction was partly yours. The win feels like a collaboration, which is how collecting at this level increasingly feels. Your name is known in the international collecting community, not famous in the way that automotive celebrities are famous. Known in the way that matters in a small world where reputation is the primary currency. Auction houses call you before specialist events to preview cars that aren't yet cataloged. Dealers bring you things before they go to the open market. You're inside the information flow that operates before where the public information becomes available. You've started thinking about legacy, not mortality. What happens to the cars when your relationship with them ends, whether that's through sale, through gift to an institution, through passing them to the next person who will care for them properly. The cars that came through your hands have been improved by the experience in every case. Better documented, better understood, better maintained. You're proud of this in a way that's separate from pride about ownership. Level 9, the legend. 55 years old. Your collection has been the subject of magazine features in 3 countries. A car you owned for 12 years is now in a major museum. You were interviewed for a documentary about Italian automotive design that will be seen by more people than will ever attend a concours. The knowledge you accumulated over 4 decades has become something shareable at scale. You still go to the auctions. You still walk the inspection tents and look at the cars with the same eyes you develop slowly over a lifetime. You still find things other people miss, not because your eyes are better than anyone else's, because you've looked at more of these things than almost anyone alive and the pattern recognition is cumulative. You drive your cars, all of them, on rotation through the year. Not for the public, not for photos, because the relationship between a driver and a car is the thing this was always actually about. The poster on the ceiling when you were 12. The 45-minute conversation with the man in his E-Type. The Golf with the sagging seat. All of it led here, to the garage in the morning, to the engine turning over, to the road ahead of you and a machine beneath you that someone built as well as they could because they cared as much as you do. Somewhere right now a 12-year-old has a poster on their ceiling. They're staring at it in the dark and they feel something they don't have words for yet. They will find the words. The cars will teach them.